everyone, welcome to Topic of the Day. This is our Sunday edition where we bring to you the places that have been in news lately. Let's begin our today's discussion with our very first location as Red Sea. Now recently the Red Sea was in news as the Houthi rebellions from Yemen have criticized the task force that was led by the United States who wanted to patrol the Red Sea. Let us now look into the map where the Red Sea is located. The Red Sea is formed by the Arabian Peninsula that was split by the Horn of Africa by the Red Sea Rift movement. So here we are talking about the Arabian Peninsula. This entirely is the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa. When we talk about Horn of Africa, there are majorly 4 countries that are party to the Horn of Africa. We have Eritrea, we have Ethiopia, and here we have Djibouti, here we have Somalia. Now Red Sea is one of the most strategic location as Suez Canal is situated over here. Therefore, the majority of trade passes through this region. If we talk about the length of Red Sea, the length is around 2,250 kilometers. So the Red Sea is around 2,250 kilometers and the widest point is around 355 kilometers. The widest point is around 355 kilometers with a depth of around 490 meters. Let us now locate the major gulfs and bordering nations along the Red Sea. First of all, the north of Red Sea we have Egypt that is highlighted. Now Egypt is a transcontinental nation as the mainland Egypt lies in Africa continent whereas the Sinai Peninsula lies in Asia. This is the mainland Egypt. This lies in the African continent and this particular is the Sinai Peninsula that lies in Asia. This is the Suez Canal, which is extremely important transit route between Asia and Europe. 1/3 of world's trade passes through this particular route. So if we talk about Suez Canal, it starts from Port Said in the north. Here we have the Port Said and here we have the Port Suez to the south of Suez Canal. Now this connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. If we talk about gulfs, there are 2 gulfs above the Red Sea. This particular is known as the Gulf of Suez and then we have the Gulf of Aqaba. So this particular is the Gulf of Aqaba. Now across the Gulf of Aqaba we have important strait that is known as the Strait of Tyran. So this particular is the Strait of Tyran. Now an important point to remember is that Gulf of Suez is shallow, that is it is around 180 to 210 feet deep, whereas the Gulf of Aqaba, this particular is around 5,500 feet in depth. Now the Gulf of Aqaba is bordered by 4 nations. We have Egypt, we have Israel, we have Jordan and here we have the Saudi Arabia. Also this particular is the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. This is known as the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb and this is the Gulf of Aden which is named after the Aden city of Yemen. And the Gulf of Aden further joins into the Arabian Sea. An important island in this region is the Socotra Island that is governed by Yemen. So this particular is the Socotra Island. This is governed by Yemen. Let us now talk about the bordering nations to the Red Sea. The eastern shore of Red Sea we have Saudi Arabia and Yemen. Towards the western shore we have Egypt, we have Sudan, Eritrea and here we have Djibouti. So Djibouti is strategically very important as it is adjacent to the narrow strait of Bab el-Mandeb and we have naval bases of foreign countries on its soil. So this is Djibouti. If we talk about Horn of Africa, there are 4 countries that are majorly part of Horn of Africa. We have Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti and here we have Somalia. So this particular region forms the Horn of Africa. If we talk about this region, here we have the Persian Gulf and here we have the Gulf of Oman. The narrow strait over here is known as the Strait of Hormuz. So this is known as the Strait of Hormuz. Now let us move on and talk about the biodiversity of this region. The Red Sea also has extensive shallow shelves that are noted for their marine life and corals. Now another important point is that where does the name Red Sea come from? So basically the Red Sea is an intensive blue-green sea which have major blooms of algae, which is known by the name Trichodesmium erythraeum. This is the name of algae Trichodesmium erythraeum, which when dies down, it generally gives the sea a reddish brown color. Therefore, we also call the Red Sea as the Erythraean Sea or the Sea of Reeds. Now, if we talk about The topography, the Red Sea was formed by Arabian Peninsula being split from the Horn of Africa by the movement of Red Sea Rift, as we have discussed. So the Red Sea is one of the saltiest bodies of water in the world. And the salinity in the Red Sea is greater than the world average, that is about 4%. And the reason is high evaporation and low precipitation. And also, we have no significant rivers or streams that drain into the Red Sea. So, this was about Red Sea. Let's move on to our next location, that is. Now, let's move on to our second location, that is Africa. Now, recently, two regions of Africa were in news, that is Tanzania and South Africa. Therefore, we'll focus first on the African continent and further on to these locations. Now, when we say Africa, we are talking about the second largest continent in the world after Asia, both in terms of area as well as population. And an important point is that this is the only continent from which all three, that is equator, Tropic of Cancer, and then we have the Tropic of Capricorn, 23.5 degrees south, the Tropic of Capricorn. So all three passes through the African continent. Also, Africa covers 6% of the world's total surface area. Its largest country is Algeria, followed by the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was previously known by the name Zaire. And then we have Sudan. And here we have Nigeria, which is the most populous country in Africa. Now, according to the United Nations, there are 54 sovereign African countries, wherein 48 countries are there in the mainland Africa continent, and we have 6 islands that belong to Africa. So if we talk about the disputed territories of Africa, in the north, we have the Western Sahara region. Western Sahara is a disputed territory. It is occupied by Morocco, but it is claimed by Polisario. And then towards the east, we have Somaliland. That is the second disputed territory of African region. Now, if we look at the island countries of Africa, here we have Cape Verde. Now, towards the south of Cape Verde, we have the Kingdom of Sao Tome and Principe, or the islands of Sao Tome and Principe. It is a small island. And then there are 4 island nations that are situated to the east of the African continent. We have Seychelles around here. We have the Comoros Islands. We have Mauritius. And then we have the island of Madagascar. So these were the 6 island nations of African continent. Also to the north, we have the Canary Islands, which belongs to Spain. And if we see the demographics, an estimated 1.37 billion people live in Africa, which accounts for about 14% of the world's population as of 2021. And the most populous country is Nigeria, with an approximate population of 211 million. Again, to the north of Africa, we see the Strait of Gibraltar separates the African continent with the European continent. This is a small strait situated north of Morocco. Also here we have the Gulf of Gabes, and here we have the Gulf of Sirte. This is the Mediterranean Sea, and here we have the Red Sea. Towards the south, we have the Cape of Good Hope, and here we also have the Cape of Agulhas, and this is the Alga Bay. And if we move towards this side, we have the Mozambique Channel over here, the Mozambique Channel. We have the small island of Mayotte that is governed by France. And here we have the Gulf of Aden, and this is the Indian Ocean. And this particular is the Persian Gulf that is joined by the Gulf of Oman through the Strait of Hormuz, which further joins into the Arabian Sea. Further on, the coastline of countries Sierra Leone and Liberia is known by the name Grain Coast. This is known as Grain Coast. The coast of Cote d'Ivoire was known as the Ivory Coast, the Ivory Coast. We have the coast of Ghana, which was known as the Gold Coast. And Togo, Benin, and Nigeria was known as the Slave Coast. Now, these were named after grain, ivory, gold, and slaves, respectively, were sent to the colonial nations from these countries. So, respectively, they are known as the Grain Coast, Ivory Coast, Gold Coast, and the Slave Coast. Now, some of the major physical features of Africa are we have the Atlas Mountains in the north. The Atlas Mountains, these are the young fold mountains. Then we have the Sahara Desert, which is the world's largest desert. Here we have, in this region, we have the Kalahari Desert. And here we have the Namib Desert. Also, savanna grasslands are majorly found in Africa, which are also known as the African savanna. And here we have the Ethiopian highlands. The Blue Nile River, which is the major tributary of the main river Nile, starts from this region. And it joins the White Nile River in Khartoum in Sudan to further flow into Egypt and then drain into the Mediterranean Sea. We also have the Congo River, which is important as it cuts 9 countries and cuts the equator twice. Another river is the Orange River, which flows through South Africa, and here we have the Drakensberg. Now, an important point about Africa is that it has straight line boundaries if you look into the map. And the basic reason is that there was a paper partition that was done in 1884 by the colonial powers, and that was to prevent conflict among themselves. Now, let us move on to our next location, and that is South Africa. So, recently in South Africa, more than 440 people died following heavy rains that triggered floods in the KwaZulu-Natal province of South Africa. So, as we know, South Africa is the southernmost part of Africa. And if we talk about the capitals of South Africa, there are three capitals, one for executive, one for judicial, and one for legislative purposes. We have Pretoria, that is for executive purposes. We have Bloemfontein, that is for judicial purposes. And then there is Cape Town, that is specifically for legislative purposes. So, in South Africa, we have three capitals. Now, if we talk about the countries bordering South Africa, we have Botswana, we have Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and then we have Swaziland. So, Swaziland is a country which has given itself a new name, that is Eswatini. Here we have the Atlantic Ocean, and here we have the Indian Ocean. And if you look here between Madagascar and Africa, we have the Mozambique Channel. This is known as Mozambique Channel. Now, there's another sovereign nation that is known as Lesotho. That is an enclave of South Africa. So, it is completely landlocked by South Africa. And then we have Eswatini. That is an enclave, but it shares its border both with Mozambique and South Africa. Now, further into the map, let's look into some of the physical features. First of all, the southernmost point, we have the Cape of Good Hope. And then we have Cape Agulhas, that is just located. So, here we have the capitals, Pretoria, Bloemfontein, and here we have the Cape Town. And this is the famous Kalahari Desert of Africa. So actually the Kalahari Desert is famous for the original inhabitants of this land, which were actually known by the name Kalahari Bushmen. We have Kimberley, majorly famous for diamonds. And here we also have the Algoa Bay. Now we have the Orange River, which is actually the largest river in South Africa. The Orange River starts from Drakensberg. This region is the Drakensberg, and in 2000 it was declared as UNESCO World Heritage Site. So if we talk about Drakensberg, it is actually an escarpment. That means it is a steep slope or long cliff that is formed as a result of faulting or erosion, and it separates two relatively level areas having different elevations. So one part may be steep and other may be slopey. This Drakensberg is the source of Orange River, which is actually the largest river in South Africa. Here we have the Orange River. We also have the Kruger National Park, which is also an important site. This one is the Kruger National Park. We have the Cape of Good Hope, that is the southernmost point of Africa. And this is also known as the graveyard of ships. It is a prominent headland that sailors once feared, as we have a lot of cliffs in this region. Also, some important facts about South Africa. It is the largest producer of platinum. It is also the home to largest impact crater on Earth, which is named as the Vredefort crater, and it has its own floral kingdom that is known by the name Phytochorion. Well, this was about South Africa. Let's move on to our next location, and that is Tanzania. Now, this region was in news as in the central Tanzania, the Barbeg tribe, who used to hunt the lions earlier, have converted to protectors of these lions who were once the threat to their community. Now, Tanzania is home to an estimated 50% of the lion population in the sub-Saharan Africa. It is bordered by Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Zambia, Malawi, and the Indian Ocean, with the Democratic Republic of Congo and Mozambique. So let's look at a detailed map of Tanzania. It is the East African country that is situated to the south of Equator. These includes the islands of Pemba, Zanzibar, and Mafia. So these are the three islands that are part of Tanzania. And here we have the capital city as Dodoma. It has shorelines with three of the Great Lakes. The first one is the Lake Victoria. Then we have Lake Tanganyika, and another one is Lake Nyasa, which is also known as Lake Malawi. Now, when we talk about Lake Victoria, it is shared by Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. Similarly, if you look at Lake Tanganyika, it is shared by Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and Tanzania. And the another one, Lake Nyasa, which is also known as Lake, is shared by Tanzania, Malawi, and Mozambique. Lake Victoria is the source of White Nile River, which is a major tributary of the Nile River. Also, we have the Mount Kilimanjaro situated over here, which is an active volcano and is the highest point in Africa. Now, the Mount Kilimanjaro is a standalone peak and is not a part of any of the mountain ranges. Further on, we have the East African Rift system that runs in two north-south trending branches through the mainland Tanzania. Well, that's a wrap of today's edition of Places in News. For regular updates, you can follow us on our social media handles. And for more such videos, do stay tuned to the next IAS YouTube channel.